A very warm welcome to This World Game Changers podcast, where your host, Paul D. Lowe, embraces many crucial conversations that compassionately contribute towards creating a better life and world. Paul's intention is very simple: to help get people's inspirational insights and motivational messages out into the world so others may benefit.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this World Game Changers podcast episode, where we are doing another episode of Angels with Dirty Faces. And this time, to help us along with the theme of it, which is torn between two lovers, is Mick Garton, close personal friend, business associate, and also my esteemed colleague, Gary Clarke. Mick, it's over to you. Torn between two lovers.
Good title indeed. First, I'd like to start with the way we sort of all got together in terms of the Carlton Town, Nottingham Forest connections. So I'll start with you if I can, Paul. Going back, I obviously took over as chairman in the early part of this decade, and my relationship with you was formed on the basis of the charity work you were doing, and I think. If my memory serves me right, we met at an event, and there was a mutual thing where your lad sort of was working for me, and I got involved with the charity. You got involved with Carlton Town. What's your first memories of the two of us meeting, Paul, and your first involvement with Carlton Town?
It was at that hotel at Junction 25, Mick. Junction 25 of the M1. And it was in a January. It was about 20 years ago, 2005. In fact, it was January 2005, I think.
Was it Chopper Harris?
Yes, it was. It was Chopper Harris. And we met there and we just clicked. And I said, you know what, Mick? I like to do business over a cup of tea and a slice of cake. Let's meet up. Let's have a chinwag and see where it takes us. And that's what we did, Mick. And then, it became obvious that we'd got there was a deep love of Nottingham Forest there. Obviously, I loved and respected what you was doing with, Carlton Town. And we kind of just built it from there. And I think later on that year, we did the Brian Clough tribute dinner, if you remember, where we had nearly 600 people at the East Midlands Conference Centre. A lot of the European lads there, and Clive Thomas, the ex-referee, Javid Khalid, the world champion boxer at the time, and many, many more. It kind of went from there, Mick, is my earliest recollection.
And I think, moving that forward, we obviously continued working together at the time on one or two dinners, one or two events, always kept in touch. And from memory, you then came in and helped us at Carlton with some sponsorship. And the relationship's sort of gone from there, really. And it's been steady and continuous pretty much all the way through. Even when you sort of moved abroad to Spain, we still kept in touch and spoke, and it really has been a long-term thing. In terms of you, Gary, your story is a little bit different because, and again, correct me if my memory deceives me in any way, but I think we first met 7 or 8 years ago. From memory, you took a table at one of the functions at Carlton, and I knew of you because I'd bought and read your book. I'd seen you from a distance at a couple of events. I knew your dad because he was very persistent in coming and making sure I was selling your book. And if I'd sold out, he'd walk into the shop and spot I'd sold out, and straight away be in my office with another pile for me, even without invitation. But that's not a criticism. He was just doing his sales pitch. And my first meeting with you was you came to a Carlton Town event, and didn't know you, but you came over to me, introduced yourself, and you very kindly said, "Look, I understand you're all volunteers down here, and you're raising some money, and you kindly donated some stuff for the auction." And I can remember the next dinner came up, and I think it was Mick West who's a friend of mine as well, who'd invited you on the table, or invited you to take a table, and you came to the next do. And again, you did exactly the same thing. And I think this pattern was continued. You came to one or two events. I can remember you buying shots at the end of the night for all the committee. You came over and said, got a lot of respect for what you people do down here, and you're having a shot with me. And you bought everybody a drink right at the end of the evening before we went home, which was a nice touch. And I think the relationship went from there, really. I do remember you donated every single year. And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Gaz, but I think when you really got involved was during COVID. You couldn't go and watch your beloved Forest, and the only game you could actually come and see was Carlton Town, and you came down to watch us, and I can remember you coming up to me and saying, bloody hell, this is good. I never really sort of massively been into non-league, and from then on, it sort of got to the stage where you were coming pretty much every game, and it built from there, really. And then we did we sort of did during COVID, we talked about working together, and the charity event was next on the agenda, and it's really blossomed from there, Gary, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think you're right. Bang on, Mick. Bang on the money. It was about 8-9 years ago. I remember Mike West. I got to know Mike at Forest because we used to go hospitality a lot at Forest, like your good self. Got to know Mike, and he did a lot of events at the time, didn't he? Robin Hood Forest. And I think obviously a good friend of yours, and he says, like, my mate Mick Garton's doing at Carlton Town, they do a Christmas luncheon fundraiser. I can't remember who it was the first time I went down there, who the guest was, but I took a table through Mike, took a few friends down, and we really enjoyed it. It was a Friday afternoon. Bit unusual, really, because we know these events are normally night time, but yours was a Friday afternoon just before Christmas. All of us really enjoyed it, and I think I went over and introduced myself to you. My dad had spoke highly of you. I think you started selling my dad's book in your shop to start off with.
Yeah, it was both books.
Yeah, because my dad wrote a book probably about 7-8 years ago, 9 years ago. And I think he, like you say, he's a bit of a good salesman. He likes to shove things your way. I think he was in a night shop every week. I can remember him going in, and he spoke about you quite a lot to me. And I'd never met you, and then obviously got invited to that event, and I thought I'd come over and introduce myself. And I said, "Oh, you know my dad. Obviously, you sell his book in your shop." So I think we sat down for half an hour or 10 minutes at the end of the event and had a bit of a chat, and we got on pretty well. Obviously, mutual Forest fans, and then we got invited again the year after. I think I might have said then I'll have a table next year. I think I gave you my number. We kept in touch then, I think, and I took a table the year after. And I think I turned around and said, I'll have one every year then, because we do enjoy it. So we started coming every year, didn't we? I didn't go down to watch Carlton for a while. Took a while because obviously I follow Forest and I'm always busy on Saturdays. And then, like you say, it was during COVID. You weren't allowed to go and watch professional football during COVID, but the government opened up grassroots where you could go down and watch the non-league football. Well, obviously, Carlton Town was my first choice, so we went down a couple of times, took a few mates down there, really enjoyed it. You can have a pint at the side of the pitch. What I noticed, it's a really friendly family club, and everyone's really nice down there. We took to it, and then I think you came up with the idea of doing a charity match. Obviously, I got him during COVID. Obviously, I met at one of these events just before COVID struck. I met Paul. He did some comparing for you on the Paul Art do, and Paul introduced himself to me. I bought a couple of Paul's books. So I was intrigued by Paul, to be honest with you, selling his books in. I wanted to know a bit more about Paul, so I bought a couple of his books. And obviously, Bestwood was mentioned, and I lived in Arnold a lot of my life, which is now on the doorstep of Bestwood. So I think I was really intrigued by Paul. And Paul came over, introduced himself, gave me his card, and Paul kept in touch. And then he invited me on a podcast for his world. He just set a new charity up at the time during COVID, World Game Changers. He invited me to get involved with that. And then it was your idea to do the charity football game between us all, between both Carlton Town and World Game Changers. And obviously it come on right as COVID came to sort of the end, and it was probably one of the first events where everyone was allowed out, and it was overwhelming success where we had that many people came to the event. We couldn't cope, raised a hell of a lot of money, beyond our wildest dreams really for everybody. And then got more and more involved with Paul's charity, more and more involved with Carlton Town. I've been doing stuff with Carlton for years. I always donated to you. like you said, I really enjoyed doing that. I like doing stuff like that, and I like football. I like helping Carlton Town out, and then obviously during COVID, Brian Dennett passed away, the commercial manager, which was very sad. Obviously, due to respect of his family and everything, you left it, and there was a void for a while. And obviously, you were looking at taking new staff on, voluntary staff on. And I think you've seen something in me where I know people, and then you took the plunge. Obviously, with my past record as well, I felt sort of humbled that you shown faith in me and Paul as well with the charity. About my history and my bad old days, as the people call it. And you took a gamble on me, both of you. Both of you took a gamble on me, really. I'm very humble to this day. You did that for me. I'm very proud that I've come on board with both of you. So
I think I speak for Paul as well when I say that I think both of us have. If you say we take a gamble, I think it's probably one of the best gambles I've ever taken, because from a personal point of view, after, as you rightly said, Brian Dennett had sadly passed away, and just going back to the charity game, Gary, I remember that we were looking. I mean, we obviously financially we're in a situation where we'd still got the bills to pay. We were able to sort of access some grants, which Dave Hodgson proved to be very good at. But technically, the majority of the bills still had to be paid, and we were desperate at the time to bring some money in. And you were obviously getting involved with Paul and the charity. And I just remember saying, look, what we need to kickstart something after COVID. And the two of us got together and we put the do on. As you rightly say, it was a fantastic success. And with the help of Paul, we managed to... I mean, I can remember on the day it was just overwhelming, the number of people came. But just going on from that, Gaz, just from our point of view, what actually happened was we obviously needed, out of respect to Brian, because he'd been such a good commercial manager and a press officer at the club, we needed to leave a time after his death before, we didn't want to just go and appoint somebody the next day. But I spoke with several people at the club, including Tommy and one or two others. And it was felt that, you were already coming, you were already contributing. And I thought it'd be nice to put it on an official footing. And you say about your past, rightly, I'll be interested to get Paul's take on that as well, because I'm a big believer in finding people as a take them. And you, to me, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your backside, as it were, but you just seem to be somebody that, okay, you've got a past, but you just seem to want to do good and help people. And to this day, that is my overwhelming thing that comes across to me with you, that you will go out of your way to help people. And you're a decent human being, to be honest. And so it was a no-brainer. I realised one or two questions might come our way. Why have you taken this gentleman on with his background? And in fairness, it hasn't really. I think everybody can see that the contribution you're making and all the work you do for Paul's charity. Not only that, but other things that we've been involved with, like Ukraine and other events. And so, from a personal point of view, I take people as I find them, and I think it's one of the best decisions I've made getting you involved. What's your take on getting Gary involved with the charity, Paul, and working alongside you?
There's an old biblical saying, isn't it? Let he who's without sin cast the first stone. Hey, listen, we've all got a past. Spoke about this in previous chapters. We've all got a past. We've all got skeletons in the cupboard. The brave will say, do you know what? I may have turned left there where I may probably should have turned right. That's a lesson learned. The world will judge you. Personally, I've been through so much in my own world that I'm used to judgment and they mean nothing. Not for 1 second did I ever think about Gary in his past or whatever. And I spoke about this, Mick, to answer your questions, to say in previous chapters, I just resonated towards his energy and his spirit. He's a good skin. He's a good skin. That's it. What he's done in the past, I don't care. I don't give a monkeys. And, because I've had so many people judge me about this, that, and the other, I just let them go. But when like attracts like, you resonate with people that you just know you're going to rub along with, whatever the past is. We've all done things that we shouldn't have done. So what? we've all scored an own goal here and there. Some of us on the football pitch, probably more times than they should have. That was when I was moved from right back to right wing, because I was too much of a risk at full back. But anyway, that's another story.
I don't know. You played full back in the charity match last year, Paul. Last summer.
Well, I tried.
Yeah, I did notice you left back.
Yeah, I mean, wrong side of the pitch for me. But anyway, to quote Schwarzenegger, I will return.
Guys, just following on from that. So obviously, me and Paul, Gaz, took the same view, albeit probably coming to that conclusion from different angles, but albeit the same view as it was, and quite clearly, it's it's a positive relationship now, and Carlton Town are the beneficiaries of that without a shadow of doubt. And Paul's charity, has also been the benefactors of that, and also particularly with that one event. I mean, I know we've done other stuff since then, but that one event was particularly successful, and I think we can all be proud of the role we played in that. Just moving on a little bit now, because the angle of this is slightly interesting, because what we're going to touch on now is lovers. Now, from a personal point of view, as you've said, I've been a Forest season ticket holder for many, many years. We've got some corporate facilities there now. We've had the programme contract down there for many years, so there's a working element to that as well. And there's also the element where we take guest customers and that sort of thing. And the one beauty we've always had with the Northern Premier League is that we're allowed at Carlton Town to swap our fixtures with another club. So obviously that doesn't mean you're going to get every fixture swapped over, but during the course of a season, you can pretty much say that the majority of weeks that Forest are at home, Carlton won't be at home. They switch vice versa. So during the course of the season, it may well be, in terms of Forest, I only probably miss perhaps four. Sorry, in terms of Carlton, I'll perhaps miss four home games during the course of the season at the most. I think this season so far I've only missed one. And we're at the end of the day, we're the back end of the year. I can't always get to away games, whether it be Forest or Carlton, because I work Saturday mornings and don't finish till dinner. As you well know, I run a couple of businesses, so. But it has always been a challenge, and the fact I do pay for corporate facilities at Forest means that at the end of the day, I don't really want to miss any Forest games, given the amount of money I pay. But also, what I try and do with that is I auction prizes off to help raise money for Carlton by way of at the Christmas luncheon next week. You'll find it's in a few days. You'll find there'll be prizes given, 2 seats in the box with food, blah blah blah, which will be given to Carlton Town to help raise money for Carlton Town. So there's always been a massive advantage to Carlton Town with the hospitality that I've got at Forest. Obviously, Gary, we'll start with you. Because Paul obviously, again, comes at it from a slightly different angle. But, I mean, I suppose from your point of view, you're grateful of the fact that you can get to both Forest and Carlton games. But sometimes you've had to choose Forest, Gaz, and I think sometimes you've had to choose Carlton because you've invited people or whatever. What do you find that a difficult one? Or, torn between two lovers, you can have more than one lover then, can't you?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of the lads know me. I've got about 10 lovers,
male and female.
You know what I mean, you call me. I've got more clubs than Jack Nicklaus. Yeah, female. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm yeah. Charlie, my lad, likes Forest. Obviously, it's all, especially doing really well these days. So. I'm very lucky that Charlie's got a godfather called Mark, and if I've got to go, obviously because I'm the commercial manager now at Carlton, I get the sponsors in on match days. So I feel if Carlton are at home and Forest are at home, I have to meet the sponsors. I feel obligated to meet the sponsors. It don't look very good if I get the sponsors in. Gary's at Forest. What's he doing up Forest when these people are coming half the time, coming to meet me and meet and greet me and watch a game under my guidance and hospitality. I feel I've got to be at Carlton, to be honest with you. it's a no-brainer for me, really, because I do enjoy going to Carlton, and I like grassroots football these days. I've got the bug, as Dave Hodgson would say. I've got bitten by the bug. It makes it hard because Charlie likes to go to Forest, especially now we've got promotion to the Premier League. But I'm very, very lucky that I've got Mark. The last two Saturdays, I think I missed the Palace game and I missed the Brentford game because I went somewhere else. And Mark took Charlie along. So, you know, I'm very fortunate that Mark could accommodate Charlie on match days, being his godfather as well. So I'm pretty lucky, really, that I can do Carlton Town when I want to. And obviously I work for Carlton now, so I feel obligated to help out a bit more. Being an old school Forest as well, I've seen it all and done it all. I don't mind picking my games. Brentford at home on a Saturday don't do too much for me these days, to be honest with you. Crystal Palace, you know, I missed a good day there. We won 1-0, don't get me wrong, but I enjoyed it down Carlton as well. So, you know, I wasn't too bothered. You know,
Gaz, you've took in a few away games for both clubs as well this season.
Yeah, I've done a couple of coach trips away with Carlton. Forest, obviously, Charlie, my boy, wants to go to every Premier League, more or less every Premier League ground. So I'm having to go to a lot more Forest games. What I normally do away from home, I normally only pick 4 or 5 during the season. I normally, when we've been in the Championship, because I've got mates at Birmingham, Bristol City, Middlesbrough, I normally do the same ones every year, and taking a nice out or a weekend away. I do an odd couple where Charlie hasn't been, because I like him to get his. I'm a bit of a ground hopper, and Charlie's going to be a ground hopper. He's done about 34 British grounds now. He's only 12, but he wants to go to all the big ones this year. You know, i.e. Tottenham, West Ham. He hasn't been to those, so I've got to go to these. He wants to take him. So yeah, I'm going to more away games this year than what I normally do, because we're back in the Premier League. And obviously my son wants to go to them. I mean, when we drew Blackburn away in the Cup the other week, I thought, Blackburn away on a Tuesday night up in December. I've been there numerous times over the years. It's back and beyond, middle of nowhere, further than Manchester. Anyway, we draw them in the Cup. Charlie, late night draw, I think it was. Spoke to Charlie in the morning before he went to school. Oh, you don't fancy Blackburn, do you, Charlie? Oh, yeah, Dad, I want to go Blackburn in the Cup. Yeah. Oh, I thought, no, that's all I need. You know what I mean? Just before Christmas. So, as a father, I will take him. You know what I mean? So, but I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have somebody to take me all the time, and I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted because my dad's from Cambridge, and he's a Forest fan, but he wouldn't take me to Blackburn on a Tuesday night in the Cup, if you know what I mean. But I feel like I missed out a lot back when I was younger. You know what I mean? I don't want my Charlie to feel like he's missed out. You know, at a young age. I want him to. We might not be in the Premier League forever. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm hoping. I think we'll be all right, but you never know. So he might not get to visit Tottenham for another 15 years. So I'm not going to let him miss these events, if you know what I mean, as well.
Yes, that's totally my view as well. And during the course of the last few years, I've probably done one Forest away match a season, quite a few Carlton, but only one Forest away match. Where this year I've done similar. I've made a point of getting to the games because, like you say, the chance to go to Arsenal, Man City, even though we got stuff, was a good opportunity. And I think one of the advantages with being in the Premier League, although some people would see it as a disadvantage, is that you've got games on a Sunday, games on a Monday, games on a Friday. So there is a mix. And when you support two clubs, that actually can be an advantage. So there are ifs and buts, and there's certainly one or two things that work in our favour. Paul, from your point of view, you're a little bit different because you don't, even though you've sponsored Carlton and you've been involved with Carlton for a lot of years, you're not somebody who I would describe that comes to every game. But from your point of view, this season and last season, I know that you've sponsored so many games. You've sponsored the match ball, you've sponsored the mascots and got involved with that side of it. And again, you don't go to every Forest game, but you'll go to some Forest games. And what's your angle on the going to Carlton games, going to Forest games, getting involved? Where do you stand on all this, Paul?
Yeah, in terms of physical attendance, because obviously business is kicking off massively. I've just relocated from Spain back to the south of England. as you know, rather than my native Nottingham. That is for business reasons. So yeah, I mean, my attendances are sparse to say the least. But I actually don't worry about that because for me, it's where the heart lies. Nottingham is my city. I'm not a Carlton boy, as you know, I'm a Bestwood lad. But through my friendship with you, Mick, and obviously the investment that's been made over the years, the financial part's the easy part, but the emotional investment to go down to Carlton Town and see what beautiful people are doing, real great things just for the love of football and, giving kids a chance. I just think it's magical. You can't put a price on that. So when it comes to that, that's where the emotional draw is. I don't have to turn up on a Saturday to Carlton home game because that's not where my love of the club is. My love of the club is for the unsung heroes, and there are a lot of them at Carlton Town, and what they do for the benefit of the local community, and particularly the younger people. As you know, Mick, I've sponsored the academy in past years. Giving grassroots football, a chance, if you will, and that's where I'm more than happy to certainly invest my money, but more importantly, my heart, and that's what matters. The Forest thing, oh blimey, I wish I could divorce Forest. I wish I could do. I'm falling in love with Carlton, but I can't divorce Forest. It's hence the sort of torn between two lovers because they've drove me nuts over the years, drove me nuts. But like I say, I don't go to that many games, but they'll always be in my heart massively.
I think the interesting thing is, and that everything goes in cycles, and I think last season in particular, the interesting thing for me was that last season Carlton had a really good season in the sense that we only missed out on the playoffs and we won the Not Senior Cup, and at the same time, Forest had that amazing season where they obviously got to Wembley. I know we touched on this before. You were there with us, and they got promotion. And this season, Carlton's had a particularly tricky start through various reasons, the travel, a lot of injuries, and a couple of good wins recently as we record this. But yeah, it's fair to say we've had a difficult start to the season. Forest had a difficult start to the season. We thought that Cooper might be on the way, and unfortunately, the decision went the other way. So, in a way, the club's two fortunes have sort of run by side over the last 2 years. But it's intriguing how the other Saturday, for instance, they both won, and it was like, wow, I can't remember the last time that happened. Where last season there were many weekends where they both won. So, but I bet. Gary, that in a way best describes football, doesn't it? That you can be up and down, and you touched on. I think we've touched many times on the fact it's 23 years with Forest being outside the Premier League, and the fact that we might not be there, even though we think, and I know Paul thinks we'll definitely stay up. But at the end of the day, I also take on board your point, Boatsy, about the fact that you're getting in 1 or 2 away games this season, because you're realistic enough to understand that it may be, we've got to come down again to come up. I mean, I don't know what's your feelings on what I've just said in terms of those points.
I think we're quite lucky this year with the Premier League because we've had a lot of Sunday games, and I think around Christmas time, nothing clashes with the TV. I mean, a lot of people are moaning about Sky TV. We're having to go to, I don't know, Man City or whatever, or a night game, or the Arsenal on a Sunday afternoon. But it's better for us, really, because we're getting to see more Forest games. And we can do, Forest and Carlton, same weekend. There's only been a couple that's clashed because of the TV. Forest aren't having that many 3 o'clocks on Saturdays, which is great for us. I mean, all my mates are moaning, and I don't want to go, but I was quite happy when the fixtures come out, and I see the TV fixtures come out. I'm quite pleased with it because I can do both. I've got a great football weekend, Saturday and Sunday, a lot of the times. So I can do both. It's been brilliant for me. So that's pretty good. I think we will stay up. I mean, there was a point where I thought we're doomed, but I'm pretty impressed with we've turned it around last few weeks. I think Cooper don't become a bad manager overnight, and it's just took time to gel. And this bit of a lull with the World Cup on, I think might do us good as well. You know, I know a couple of players are away with the World Cup, but I know we hit form at the right time. I don't want people saying we could still carry it. It would be better if we carried on, but I don't know. The players will be doing a lot of training. We've got a few more friendly matches before we start again at Christmas. You know, Valencia away, Olympiacos away. You know, so we're going to get more games under the belt, and the games that it doesn't matter whether we win, lose, or draw. So there's going to be more game time with them. So I think we will be okay. To be honest with you, I think we will survive. Yeah. So like I say, yeah. And like you said, it was Saturday. I went to Carlton when we beat Crystal Palace. You got one eye on the screen in the clubhouse, and you got one eye on the pitch at Carlton on a Saturday afternoon. And what a day it was! And we're all doom and gloom. Forest were bottom of the league. Carlton's struggling. I was going to work on a Monday with a long face, down in the old drums. And then that weekend the other week when we both won. Oh, it was amazing. I went into work on a Monday with extra spring in my step. That's what football can do, isn't it? It takes you up there. It brings you from down there up there. It's amazing. I was buzzing after that weekend when we both won. So like you say, that's what football can do to you.
Absolutely, and I got the same emotions, Gaz, without a shadow of doubt. This is an interesting one. You've described yourself to me, and I think Paul as well at times, as you've said, and I'll get Paul's take on this first, but you say, to be honest, we're talking about torn between two lovers because they're the two clubs that you're in love with, but you did admit yourself you've got several other clubs. I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Gaz, but Paul, first of all, and we know Gaz has followed England over the years and he's been to a lot of England games and that type of thing. If you were to name, we talk about torn between two lovers, but if we were to say, okay, have you got a third lover, a fourth lover in terms of football? Would that be the national team, Paul? Would that be Notts County? Is there anybody else in your emotions in football that comes into play?
No, nobody at all. Nobody at all. No, it is literally those two. That's it.
I thought you had
it's very narrow.
In the years I've known you, you had a little bit of an association with Notts County. Was that purely commercial, or I always got the impression you wanted them to do well, though?
Well, I mean, it would have been hypocritical to be in bed with them on a commercial level and not kind of, but let's put it this way, Mick, when Forest played County, it was a very, very one-sided race in terms of my emotions. I wish them well as a Nottingham club, but there was no nothing there. There was no emotion at all. That was pure respect because I was involved with Notts County commercially and some great people over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, there was absolutely no attachment whatsoever. That has been massively for Nottingham Forest for many, many, many decades. And more latterly, as we spoke about, Carlton Town, for the reasons mentioned.
Paul, another question to ask you on the basis of the same. What would be the club that you always wanted to lose if you were looking and you wanted another club to lose? And I know hate's a strong word. And at the end of the day, a lot of it, certainly in terms of me, it's not hate, it's banter with the family. But who would be the club that you would want? Maybe there's more than one club, but who would be the club I'm glad they've lost, sort of thing?
That's a great question. It'd be Wolves. What would be two? It'd be Wolves and Sheffield United.
No.
No. I've never regarded Notts as. Sorry, did you say Notts or Derby?
Derby.
I've never done the Derby thing. I've never looked at them in that respect. I've never really done the Forest Derby thing. Means nothing to me. I wouldn't, for me, I haven't got that affinity in that direction. The Wolves thing goes back to the 70s when they had a fullback called, I think it was Jeff Palmer, and trying to take the proverbial out of Robbo on the wing. And and the battles that we've had with Wolves over the years and Sheffield United, they would be the two that
Sheffield United I can relate to, Paul, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that's why I suppose over the years, or even more recently, to get past Sheffield in the semi-final, and get to Wembley was particularly sweet.
I remember, I can remember, and I can't remember what game it was. I remember we played them at Sheffield a few years ago. There was an incident where I think the ball had been put out of play by Forest because there was injury to a player, and they then played it back to themselves and scored a goal or something along those lines, and it caused a lot of bad feeling. I remember the Paul Hart team, and we went down. And there's a great saying, one which I'm sure you've used yourself, is what goes around comes around. And that victory over Sheffield was very, very sweet. And it went right down to the wire. To be fair, Sheffield were the better team in the second game, and the save by Samba with his foot in the last minute, and then the penalties. And so, yeah, I felt Sheffield were the team we had to beat if we were to go up. And no disrespect to Huddersfield, but I think whoever won that game was probably going to go up. And I'm not just saying that now. I actually said that to people at the time, that there was a lot of people that thought, oh, Sheffield, God, we got Sheffield. But I thought, if you're going to go up, you've got to beat Sheffield. And we were magnificent at their ground. And then we got a little bit of luck, to be fair. But I think that was due to us, Paul, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely it was. And you know what? And Cloughy always used to dispel this. I just want to say, guys, before I go on to this, we've got about a minute left. It'll time out. We'll jump straight back in again, if that's okay. So we're going to lose each other in a minute's time. Cloughy used to, my take upon this was, a lucky side can win the cup. A lucky side doesn't win the league. And over a season, you get what you deserve. And I used to always think that if your name's on the cup, not just in football, but in life, you can call it fate, you can call it destiny. Because when you look at that second half, well, the Sheffield game, particularly at the City Ground, the second leg, as you say, Mick, to say we was lucky, the first half, Forest went out all guns blazing. Second half, it's like, where are you, boys?
Yeah.
We were very lucky. The Samba penalty saves, the whole goalkeeping experience from Samba was like, wow, what's this guy on? That was because Forest's name was written on that. And Cloughy always dispelled that. He never liked that approach. But, as much as Sir Brian, as I like to refer to him, he was the equivalent of a football god. That's one thing that I would have always disagreed with him on.
Yeah, definitely. Right, I want to go back to the Carlton Town story in a minute or two. But first, Gaz, I'd just like to ask you pretty much the same as what I've asked Paul. You described yourself to me and to Paul the other week as basically a little bit of a tart in terms of you wouldn't actually be caught between two lovers, you'd be caught between one or two. Just tell us a little bit about the other clubs you've got a little bit of affiliation to. And then, if you would, just tell us if there are any clubs that you absolutely hate from a personal point of view. I'd just be interested to hear that, Gary.
Yeah, obviously, I'm fond of Cambridge United because I've spent a lot of my childhood in Cambridge. My grandma and granddad are from there. My dad's from Cambridge. A lot of my family still live there, aunties, uncles, cousins. Spend a lot of weekends at my grandma's. And if Cambridge United were at home, my grandma didn't live too far away from the ground. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening. I might have disappeared, but I'm back.
Yeah, my grandma didn't live too far from the ground, so I could walk to the old Abbey Stadium and take a game in. So yeah, I used to watch Cambridge United as a kid. I can remember going to watch them against Chelsea in the mid-70s. Total mayhem that day as well, by the way. Pitch invasions, game held up a lot. In recent years, Plymouth Argyle, because I spent a lot of time in Cornwall. My stepdaughter was born in Plymouth. Got a lot of relatives in Plymouth as well. I normally spend the New Year down in Cornwall, and Plymouth. There's normally a lot of football games over the festive period. If Plymouth is at home, I'd take my lad over to watch Plymouth. It's only 20 miles from Lowe. I've got to know a lot of the Plymouth lads. So Plymouth Argyle is one of them. Cambridge United is one of them. There's a lot of circumstance, really, why I follow other clubs and look at scores and go and watch them if I'm not watching Forest or Carlton, if I can get to a game. The love of football is one of them. And then when I in the naughty days, I got banned for a while. I got friendly with Newcastle. I went out with a girl up there for a year. I used to go watch Newcastle United quite a bit, and then I went over to Germany when I was watching Newcastle and got friendly with a Cologne boys are German lads, so got an affinity with FC Cologne that these days. I go and watch Cologne when I can. I like to go there once or twice a year to take one of their games in, vice versa. They come and watch Forest once or twice a year. So you've got FC Cologne, Cambridge United, Plymouth Argyle. Went out with a girl in Newport for a while. Got to know the Newport boys basically through me going to Thailand. I used to have a bar in Thailand. Met a lot of football boys over there. Got friendly with some of the Newport lads. And when I was on these banning orders and wanted to watch Forest for 9 years, to get my football fix, I used to watch Newport. I went out with a girl from there as well. So Newport County is one of them. Mansfield Town's is another one because they're only up the road. And they've had a friendship with Forest for a number of years because we're England games with Mansfield boys. So it's quicker for me to get to Mansfield Town's ground than what it is to Forest ground because you have to go through the city. So I take my lads to watch Mansfield now and again. I know all the lads, so Mansfield's another one. That just circumstance, really,
Can I just ask you, at school, was there a little touch before you tell us the clubs you don't like? Was there a touch on Leeds for a while?
Yeah, I was a bit of a Leeds fan at school. They were one of the best sides in Britain at the time. Forest in the old second division, struggling. Don't look like they're going anywhere. Leeds United were the top of the game, one of the best sides in Europe. It's either Leeds, Liverpool, or Arsenal. A lot of kids like these days, it's Man City, Chelsea, United, or Arsenal, isn't it? At school. So Leeds were my team at school, besides Forest, obviously. But I was a Leeds fan at school. So there's a lot of circumstance, really. Well, I like my football. I get my football fixed one way or the other. I would call myself a football junkie.
Brilliant. That's great. And at the end of the day, there's a story to go with each one. What about the clubs that you don't like?
Well, over the years, I don't really hate anybody, to be honest with you. I mean, I have had a few run-ins with a lot of clubs like Derby County, obviously, because I was in my former hooligan days. That was our main rivals, plus the rivals of Nottingham Forest Football Club on and off the pitch, really, as well. So you could say Derby. I had a Sunderland for a while because I had my Newcastle connection. I don't really hate anybody these days, perhaps did in the younger days.
Sorry to interrupt you there, buddy, but am I right to say there was a Derby County fan that passed through the week, and you were one of the first to offer your condolences and send something up, and I wasn't involved with that, but I heard the story. Is that right?
Yeah. One of the main lads had a heart attack a couple of weeks ago. Sadly, passed away. He had a horrible car crash a couple of years ago, and we raised a few quid for him then as well. He rang me not so long back, invited me over for a drink actually because of what we did for the car crash incident. And unfortunately, he had a heart attack 2 weeks ago, and he sadly passed away. So I've obviously a few of the lads obviously got a lot of respect for him. He's always very nice to me, very kind on the England scene. I bumped into him a few times. We had a few scrapes over the years, don't get me wrong, a few run-ins, but Dennis has always been pretty good to me, on a mutual kind of basis. And he's always a gentleman, and it's a sad passing of a football legend, really. And I've got a card. I'm going to nip it over this weekend at some point. And we've raised a few quid for his family, what they want to do with it. So, that's a football lads thing. At the end of the day, we're all football fans. Don't matter what club you support, we're all pretty similar. We just follow different clubs. I'm sure that they'll do the same for us guys. That's what football brings everyone together, doesn't it, at the end of the day? I don't think anybody really, really hates each other deep down.
No, that's a good answer. Gaz, before we move on to Carlton Town, because I want to talk to you both about the contribution you've made at Carlton Town in terms of giving money, giving time, but I also want to know what you guys have got out of it as well. So I'm going to touch on that in a minute or two. But I just got one more question for you, Gaz. One thing since knowing you that I've never really asked you, but one thing that fascinates me, a lot of the people that you were fighting with over the years, the gangs, the history, they've become friends. I've noticed that in conversations I've had, people I've met with you the last few years that I've known you. How did that all pan out, that almost people you were scrapping with and rival gangs that now in your 50s, you've almost become soulmates, friends? I mean, from an outsider, I was never obviously involved with that kind of thing. But I do find it fascinating. Can you just shed some light on that for me, buddy?
Yeah, I think it's due to the England team, really, in the 80s. I mean, we were rivals off the pitch in the 80s and 90s, probably early 2000s. But I think, like I said earlier about Dennis and Derby, we're all football fans. We're all pretty similar. We've got the same interests. We've all had the same interests from leaving school. We're football casuals, and at the end of the day, just because you support a different club, we all grow up one day, don't we? We all mature, and we had these run-ins back in the day. We like to have a beer these days and chat about the old days and have a bit of a laugh about it. I don't think there's too much harm done at the end of the day. And we got similar interests, and I moved on, and a lot of my mates now follow the cricket. These lads, we go to the cricket together. The Bristol mates, I'm going to Pakistan next week with a Portsmouth lad, a couple of Bristol lads.
Yeah, I've met him.
Yeah, we met most of them, Mick. Now they're always in my company. They come up and watch the cricket at Trent Bridge. When Forest play Bristol City, I'll have a weekend in Bristol. Great city. It's one of the best cities in Britain. Manchester, I'm a lot of friends with a lot of Man United fans. And having the bar in Thailand, I got to meet a lot of different lads from different clubs. And when you're in Thailand, you just like to enjoy yourself. Like the same again, you talk about the old days. We have a beer over it in Thailand when I had the bar for 3 years. Got to know a lot of people over there. And when Forest play Man United, I'll have a night out in Manchester, vice versa. They come down here. I'm mates with a lot of Arsenal lads because I had the bar in Thailand with the Arsenal boys. Same with Chelsea as well. And I'm good mates with the Newcastle lads. We're all similar people, and I've got great mates. And I'm glad. Like Paul said earlier, I've got no regrets. I wouldn't have met these people if I didn't done what I did back in the day. And I've become very, very good friends with these people. And they've all moved on. Exactly the same as me. We're all 40s, 50s now. We're not interested in that sort of thing. We just like to talk football and have a beer.
Just remind me your role in the bar, Gaz.
Yeah, I was part owner. There's 3 of us owned it. I bought a Chelsea lad share out of it. I used to go out there for a long weekend. I lived in, obviously, a guy, an Arsenal lad, lived over there and run it. Another mate in London, another Arsenal lad, he part owned it. Was 3 of us owned it together. We had it for nearly 3 years. We made a wage out of it. It was more of a hobby to me than anything. It was a proper football bar. Everybody in Britain who was to Thailand and all, they always made for that bar. It was a proper football lads bar. So I enjoyed having it. It was more of a hobby to me, to be honest with you.
And how did that end?
Unfortunately, it ended up. One of the lads who co-owned it with us didn't say a lot, but he had a Thai wife and she had a gambling habit. And she was basically taking money out of the profit and gambling it away. So it started to run up a few debts. So we started having to put in his own pocket towards the end. And we didn't know what was happening, you know what I mean? So unfortunately, it died a death. Me and my mate were pretty gutted, wouldn't it? It will still be good to this day if that hadn't happened, to be honest with you. But we weren't prepared to fund it anymore at the end.
Okay. That's interesting.
We still got...
We've still got some
money back. We still got money back off.
I didn't know that. So yeah. I've learned something from this podcast tonight, buddy. It's coming back. Let's move on now because we've talked a lot about Forest and your guys' past. I'd just like to close the end part of this conversation and chapter, as it were, by just getting a feel from you guys what it means to you about being involved with Carlton Town in terms of what you've done, in terms of what you've got out of it, and in terms of what you're still getting out of it. Because at the end of the day, it is about Forest and Carlton Town. All 3 of us come from the same strand in terms of that. And go back to you, Paul. You've sat and listened to that fascinating insight from Boatsy, which is I think been brilliant, really, just to get a take on where he's coming from. But just coming to the Carlton thing, Paul, you've obviously been involved, albeit in a different sphere to what Boatsy's involved with. But what have you got out of it in terms of a personal satisfaction in being involved with Carlton Town?
I think it's the connection with so many unsung heroes. I love in life being around people that are down to earth, that are doing things for the right reason. And Carlton Town, in many respects, is dare I say, a typical community club. And all areas have got them. But the thing is, for me personally, I'm not attached to those other areas. I'm a Nottingham lad, and I'm attached to Carlton Town. And when I come down to the club, and whether it's doesn't matter what capacity, it's to appreciate those unsung heroes that club together. And together we're stronger. And I know that's almost cliche, but we club together. Whether it's to play football, for me, it's that sense of community. I love that. And Carlton's magical in that respect. And that's something that Nottingham Forest, despite its 2 European Cups, its promotions, and I've already said they're deep in the heart, but they can't match the community spirit of Carlton Town Football Club. That's what I get out of it.
That's good to hear, Paul. And, I take a lot of personal satisfaction from what you've said. And I'd like to place on record our thanks to you, mate, for all the help you've given us over the years and all the involvement you've had, because you've been a big part of that journey. And from on behalf of the committee and the club, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you.
Very, very welcome, Mick. Very welcome. It's a two-way street.
Gary, from your point of view, like I say, Paul's been involved a lot longer. You've only been involved, like I say, in fairness, it's probably been about 8 years in terms of donating stuff, but really the last 2 or 3 years and certainly the last year, and everybody's already looking forward to your interview on Christmas Day with Josh, which I understand you're prepared to come down on Christmas Day again and do that, which is absolutely brilliant. But from your point of view, how have you found your sort of role at Carlton, and what have you got out of it from a personal point of view? And I'm not talking about you financially, because you've taken not a penny from the club, but like Paul has, you've contributed both in terms of finance, but also more in terms of you as a human being. And I'd just like to get your take, Gary, on what you've got out of what have you got out of doing that?
Great pleasure. I've always said I'm a giver rather than a taker. It gives me immense pride, immense pleasure. The people, it should, like Paul said, it's the beautiful people down there that help out, the volunteers, like your good self as well. I really enjoy the company down there, the Saturday afternoons. The committee, they're all good guys. The players, Tommy Brookbanks, the manager, how warm a club it is. Like the away coaches, Tommy wants you to travel on the bus with the players. My son loves it. Tommy invites my son to train with the first team. He's training with semi-professional footballers at the age of 12. He loves it. It's good for his education, his development. And what clubs will do that, I just love it. I love it. I could sit in that clubhouse all Saturday night, having a drink, talking football, mixing with you guys. It's brilliant. And everyone does it out of the kindness of the heart. You know what I mean? And then we've got a great football team. The football's brilliant as well. It's all the people that help Carlton Town as well. The community, the donations we do, the food banks we do for the Gedling Borough Council, and all the sponsors that give the time up and the money to help run that community football club. It's heart of the community as well. I'm down there regular in the week on Mick, having meetings with you. You see all the kids playing football. It's a working club. It's open 6 days a week, and you see all these kids coming to play football at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's where they start out in life, isn't it? Grassroots football. And you feel like you're helping develop, future footballers. And, and it gives me a buzz. It gives me just as much as a buzz of what it did back in the day going on the terraces, to be honest with you. This is my new buzz. So,
Gaz, it's great. It's great for you to say that, and that from the heart. That means a lot to me as well. And I'd just like to finish off this podcast by saying how much I appreciate the contribution both of you's made. The one thing that stands out among both of you is the number of times you've used the word community, and the fact that we're a community club, and that to me is. At the end of the day, I look on my role at Carlton to a certain extent as me putting back into the community, because I was born in Carlton. I'm a Carlton lad. I went to the Frank Weldon School. I've made my money through my business, but in terms of Carlton, I've been able to put back into the local area. Yes, we've had some good fun along the way and had some good football results, but we're a non-for-profit club, and at the end of the day, I managed to maintain that, and I hope in years to come, when I've passed on, that will continue. Who knows? But I'm very proud to have you both involved, and like I say, from a personal point of view, it's a pleasure to have hosted this tonight, and I really look forward to the book. I'll hand back over to you, Paul, to sign things off, but it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Mate.
And there you have it, listeners. Mick Garton, the chairman of Carlton Town, as I said at the top of this podcast conversation, one of the few people that I refer to as a close personal friend. I don't throw that word around like confetti. I think we have to earn respect. We have to earn that emotional connection with people. And some cases it's just there. So Mick's one of those. In more recent times, Gary's certainly come under that banner as well. So, gentlemen, my gratitude for contributing to this amazing conversation. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul and Mick. We have guys like you. It won't happen.
And all that remains now, listeners, to sign off the way that we always sign off, by saying, remember, the game's changing. How will you respond?
Thanks very much for listening to this World Game Changers podcast episode. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Drop a line to Paul at worldgamechangers.org with any thoughts or questions you may have, and he'll be more than happy to respond. Remember, the world's changing. How will you respond?